right, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name is Hat.
And I'm Eric.
And I am Stan.
And today we are going to be talking about Dragon Quest entirely. So to open things up, this is, Eric's least favorite franchise, but we twisted his arm to talk about this today. But we're going to be talking about Dragon Quest XI. There's a demo coming out, or that is out currently, that is for consoles. And this is basically going to be the Switch version, but on consoles. It's got all the enhanced content. So we're going to be discussing that, and also what this kind of means about, these JRPGs that re-release these games like this, as opposed to what other modern games are doing. For example, Ghost of Tsushima offering the free updates and such like that. So we'll be kind of comparing it and contrasting it and going over some of the improvements with the demo version of Dragon Quest XI Definitive Edition. And then Dragon Quest creator Yuji Horii teases Dragon Quest X and possibly other Dragon Quest announcements for next year's 35th anniversary. So we're going to go over some of the speculation that's out there about what is going to be presented at the 35th anniversary, talk about what we might see, and finally we'll wrap things up with what is our favorite Dragon Quest game. So every single topic today has to deal with Dragon Quest. I hope you all are Dragon Quest fans, because I think you're going to enjoy this episode. All right, so to start things off here, Dragon Quest XI Definitive Edition, it's came out on the Switch. A lot of people were kind of upset because it had some content that was restricted to the Switch version. A lot of people bought it on the PS4 first, and so there was some controversy about that, but in large part, people got over it. But now that Switch version is now coming to console, and a lot of people are jumping on now. They're excited to finally get the full, complete version of the game, but there's still a little bit of, soreness among the people that were early adopters. So the PS4 original version that came out a couple years ago, 2 years ago, it was originally a 1080p game. And then on Switch, it was a 720p game. So this one coming to console as a separate version, more like a Royal Edition, is going to be 720p upscaled to 1080p. So again, it's not going to be quite as detailed as the original, but some of the new content on there is 25 Definitive Edition exclusive side quests. This includes things for story side quests for the characters. And then part of these side quests include 2 bonus dungeons and 2 bonus super bosses. The gameplay changes. There's ×2 and ×4 battle speed. There's the portable fun size forge for crafting. So now you can craft anywhere as opposed to at save points. And then you have the ability to summon your horse anywhere as opposed to only at specific locations. And there's a lot of other smaller updates to this Definitive Edition that make it an improvement over the original. They actually built a 16-bit version of this game like it was a Super Nintendo game, and you can switch back and forth between the modern version and the 2D version. There's Japanese voice acting. And then I think the final thing of note is the orchestral soundtrack. Some people on the PS4 version, the early adopters, especially in the West, I think the Japanese version actually had the orchestra version, if I remember correctly. But people were a little upset that the Switch version got the orchestral soundtrack, but the PS4 version didn't. And that was one of the main reasons a lot of people wanted the Switch version, even though they already bought the PS4 version, was because of that orchestral soundtrack. It wasn't the original MIDI soundtrack. I didn't mind it, but it wasn't the biggest hit with a lot of people. So that's some of the differences between the two. Like I said, the Definitive Edition that's on Switch, it's coming to consoles. It's going to be that version, all the enhancements that we just talked about. The only difference is it's going to be 60 FPS, and it's still going to be 720p textures upscaled as opposed to native 1080p. So it's going to be sharper, but it's going to still be missing some of the detail. But to contrast this new Definitive Edition of the game with some more modern titles, or I don't want to say modern, but I guess Western titles, right? CD Projekt Red for Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk, they're offering a free upgrade that will enhance the game in terms of visuals for modern consoles. So PS5 and the Xbox Series X and PC, if you already purchased the game. And Ghost of Tsushima is also offering the same upgrade in visuals, but also they offered a free multiplayer campaign. to their fan base as just like a thank you to people that bought the game. And so people are kind of pointing to this as the way of the future. But some of these JRPGs like Persona 5 and Dragon Quest 11, and to some extent Final Fantasy 15, but not quite as bad, right? Kind of still stuck in the past with this. So first thing to kind of open this discussion up here, given the amount of free content other modern franchises are offering these days, do you think Square could at least give early adopters maybe that orchestral soundtrack for free, or maybe something else in addition to those early adopters that paid for the game? Because if you think about it, if they bought it on day one PS4, that's $60. Then they bought it on Switch for the orchestral soundtrack, that's another $60. And now to get the version on console with 60 FPS is another $40. So
Yeah,
that's a lot of money.
it's a
And
lot.
when you contrast it to these other companies that are just giving crap away for free, it's kind of like, dude, you guys are nickel and diming me for like like one aspect that people might want. So I don't know, Eric, you're probably the most ardent Dragon Quest fan here. So let's start off with you. What's your take on this?
I'm 100% for if Square Enix came out and said, if you own a copy of Dragon Quest 11, you can buy the S DLC content, say $20, $30, or something like that, and you get all the features of Dragon Quest 11S with your original game. I'll be 100% for that. I'm mostly making an argument of if the content itself is justified purchasing if you are thinking about buying it a second time. I think it is, but I understand if you don't want to pay $60 for it right now. There are alternative solutions. For one, obviously you don't need to get it right away. You can wait till it's cheaper and on sale. It is going to be eventually. Your second one is especially if you own an Xbox and you're on the Game Pass, Dragon Quest 11S is going to be on Xbox Game Pass. And
True.
that you don't need to pay $60 for. You can go through the game on that.
It's only $40, right?
Yeah, it's $40 on console.
I'm sorry, $40.
Yeah, it's $40.
Still, I mean, if you bought the Switch and then you bought the PS4 version originally,
I bought the Switch version for $60.
Yeah, so I like, to me so I would be in the can for $160. But what do you guys think about? Because I think you're right, Eric, that it's the value for the complete edition, the definitive edition, is well worth it. Stan, I think you can attest to that too, because that's the version that you played on the Switch, right? That it was worth the money, right?
Yeah, if the game itself is worth $40 to $60 for sure. The version I played, because I had not purchased the original version.
Mm-hmm.
So if you haven't played Dragon Quest 11 at all, and then this $40 I think is like a really good price. However, if you bought it for $60 and now there's no option to upgrade twice, and there's no option to now upgrade it to the best version, right? Even though you own it on the same console, the PS4, right? And you have to buy the game again for $40. That is kind of it feels like Square Enix is kind of trying to double dip on you, right?
Right. So like the thing that gets me personally is, because I'll be honest, it agitates me a little bit. It does. And the thing is, because the game came out on the PS4 and it had the MIDI soundtrack, I was fine with it. But I heard this orchestral soundtrack online for the Japanese version. I thought that's amazing. That sounds really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was annoyed that it came to the Switch version and they were like restricting it to that, right? And I felt like, God, like you're almost forcing me to buy it just for that. And I all I wanted was the orchestral version with the best visuals, and I couldn't get that, right? And people made the case that, the composer, he said there was royalty problems, like everyone in the symphony gets royalties, so that's why it wasn't on the PS4 version, because that's going to sell the most. So they just couldn't afford it, so that's why it was only on the Switch version. Well, now like that version is going to be on the PS5, PS4, the Xbox, all the Xboxes. And that's going to be the version they're going to sell from, now until eternity. And apparently that's not a problem. You know, if like maybe it was earlier, but I'm sure over the next 10 years, that's going to be the one that sells the most copies, especially after they re-release it again on the Switch 2 and and everything else. So and given that was kind of a sore subject with a lot of people, it seems to me that, okay, I understand that, you know, there was this issue with porting the game to a different engine for the Switch, that it may be a lot of work to bring all the content over. But at the very least, I mean, we're talking about the soundtrack and like, I don't know, maybe some auto loot options. Like, you know, we're not talking about, you know, completely remaking the game here. And so it's just, I don't know, for me, or like a 60 FPS patch, like that would take them like a week. So I don't know. For me personally, and I guess maybe I'm in the minority on this, but I think that like they could give early adopters something, you know, but I do agree with you guys that the version that they're providing is of good content. It's not like a bad version of the game.
Yeah. It's a good standalone game for $40, right?
Right.
But it's a lackluster expansion, in terms of business practice. You know, like I agree. It's because the comparison we made a little bit earlier was I think there was Cyberpunk, but the closer comparison is Final Fantasy 15, which came out with the Royal Edition, I think like a year and a half or 2 years after.
Right.
But there was an option to just upgrade. I think it was like $15 or something, and you got like all the Royal Edition content.
Yeah.
That they added. Not the DLC, I think.
Well, so I bought the season pass because I'm stupid, and I basically it was $20, right? And I got the 3 DLCs, and then I got the crappy Kingsglaive thing that I never really played. But the Royal Edition, I think, was like $25, and it contained all the DLCs and then the Kingsglaive stuff. And then I think there was like new content as well, right?
In the game, yeah.
Right, because they like rebuilt Insomnia at the late stages, and, you know, people core shows up and stuff. And like, I don't know, I still haven't played that fully through with that extra content, but I think, yeah, it's,
there was at least a path to upgrade,
right?
Like your current version.
You are correct. I think they had a cheaper version that if you already own the game, you could upgrade to the Royal Edition. It would be cheaper.
Yeah, and I think if they had that for like Eric said earlier, if they had that for this, then it'd be no issue. There'd be no problem. But they're forcing you to pay another $40 if you want the best version of the game that you may have already purchased. You know, and so
this is what I would have done if I was Square Enix. I would have done where if you have the original game and you can buy this special DLC option that downloads the full Dragon Quest XI S game digitally, but it will activate if you put your original Dragon Quest XI disc in. Like how they do right now with PS5 modern upgrades.
Yeah.
So like what it does for the PS5, if you want to play the PS5 version of a PS4 game you already own, like physically, what it is they will you put the disc in and they will let you download the digital version, say like God of War. It'll let you download the PS5 version digitally on your PS5, but for it to activate, and you have to have the God of War PS4 disc in the console, and it'll read the disc and make sure it's the God of War PS4 version. Then it'll let you play the digital version of the PS5 version.
That's interesting. Go ahead.
So they, in theory, could do that for Dragon Quest XI.
The only thing I would be hesitant about that if I was like a publisher was like, I'm thinking, well, Johnny is going to put his Dragon Quest XI in his PS4, PS5 or whatever in order to upgrade to the S version. And then he's going to let his friend Billy borrow the disc, right? and plug it into his PS4, PS5, and do the exact same thing. And now,
But
really,
the other kid can't play
some of them
it anymore.
Oh, it like deactivates it on another console.
You have to have the disc in every time.
Oh, okay, I see.
Here's a solution though, because I can already imagine a slight problem. Eric, I think you're onto something here. I think this is the solution, but the problem would be, I paid for the digital version and now I can't, or I have the digital version and now I can't play it. So what they could do is, okay, hey, you can download the game, right? And if you put your Dragon Quest game in there, like Eric said, but you pay like $15 or something, then you get the upgraded version, but you have to have the disc in there. However, if you want to be able to play the digital version without the disc, you have to buy the whole damn game.
Yeah. That's what I'm going at here, is that you have to have the original Dragon Quest 11 disc in for those features to pop up.
Or just buy the game again, right?
Or you can buy the whole game altogether.
There is maybe one issue that Square Enix would be worried about, and that's I could go buy a used copy of Dragon Quest XI, right, at GameStop for PS4, especially after the S version comes out. I'm sure that the original version is going to drop drastically in price. And then if I could stick that version in and get the S version, then they'd be thinking they made no money off of I never actually purchased the game from Square Enix, right? I purchased a used copy.
Well, they still got your money from buying it digitally, so they got money from you in a way. And the thing is, even if you find something like that, I think like the original game is still like $15 to $20 if you go out and look for it. So like if you go and buy that and then you buy the S version, and if anything, that release would be in full intent of being courteous to your early adopters. If I was at Square Enix and someone told me, you need to come up with a solution for the early adopters so we can be pro-consumer. They're not going to be pro-consumer, but I'm just speaking that hypothetical
what they should
world
do.
That if Square Enix was going to be cool to early adopters.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we didn't even know that the S version was going to come to other consoles that weren't Switch.
How many people would have waited if they knew that it was going to come to console? Like, oh, I already beat it on the PS4. I'll just wait for it to come to, my console later. But there was that mystery about it.
That's the state of games, I think, in general today. There's always going to be some game of the year version if it's good, and that's going to have like all the DLCs in one package, like stuff like that.
Here's the thing, though, guys. This is probably my last point. I'm sure if you guys have other points too, we can talk about it. But there's a link. Let me see if I can. It's on the outline, but I'll message it to you guys too. Here, I'll post it in our Discord. You guys should join our Discord, by the way. But there's this link from Reset Era, right? And they show some before and after screenshots from the base PS4 Pro, right? Compared to the Switch version, running on the demo running on the PS4 Pro. And I think this really shows the difference between running native 1080p. Like the base PS4 version is still the best looking version. So I got this article up and I just want to show like one or two screenshots. But in the first screen here, you can see it says S Edition Demo PS4 Pro. It looks really good. It looks really sharp. But if you look on the grass here, you can see some dirt. There's not as many blades, right? And then you go to the base PS4 Pro and look how lush that grass is. I mean, you can see back on the steps, there's so much more detail in the steps, right? It's because it's a native 1080p as opposed to 720p being upscaled. And then you go down.
This version is a different Unreal version, right?
Well, this is essentially, okay, so that, let me back up here. So from what I understand, and Stan, if you heard something else, correct me, but from what I understand is, okay, you had the PS4 version, they had to go to a earlier version of Unreal Engine, like you've stated before, Eric, for the Switch version. So that took a whole effort for them to port it to an earlier version of Unreal. But then that version of Unreal still works on PS4 and Xbox and PS5. So I don't think they had to port it again. Otherwise, I think they could have just taken that new content and put it in the base game.
That's my understanding too. Yeah, that this is essentially an enhanced port of the Switch version of the game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess technically for best graphical quality, you still got to go with base Dragon Quest 11. Unless you wait for some mods on PC that bring...
It's so frustrating to me. Because I'm just like, that looks so good. Why can't I just get it all together? Square.
Play in 2D mode. And it looks
well, that's true. That is the superior version in many ways, except the some of the story cutscenes. But other than that, I really like that version too. So yeah. But like, speaking on this subject though of just these enhanced versions, right? How do you what do you guys think about like the idea of a Royal Edition, or Eric, you brought up a Game of the Year edition, which is a little bit different, but kind of Game of the Year edition usually just has all the patches and I guess the DLC in there. But like these Royal editions where it's absent DLC, right? Like, for example, Persona 5 Royal, you can't buy that content separately and like upgrade Persona 5. You have to buy the game again. So now we have that with Dragon Quest as well. I mean, do you think there's a place for Royal editions or like absent DLC going forward, given the fact that you have Ghost of Tsushima and Witcher 3 kind of like leading the way with just like free upgrades? Even Final Fantasy 15 had free upgrades.
I think on the normal case, the games are going to offer the DLC separately and then give like a Game of the Year version for like a newcomer, so they don't have to scatter for all the DLC. They can just go and buy one product. That's usually what it's meant for, because most people like already own the game. They're not going to buy it again in that fashion, especially when they already have the DLC purchased separately. Dragon Quest is kind of a unique deal in that they had problems getting it on the Switch, so it got delayed longer. And you also have to remember, Dragon Quest 11 came out in Japan long before we got it. I think like 2 years, almost is the difference.
It was a while.
In that scale of time, they were trying to get it to work on the Switch. So that's a huge year gap for at least for Japan, not so much us. And then with all that bonus content. But anyways, I don't think games are going to practice that normally. I think that's more of a Japan thing. And I do kind of agree that like I didn't play through Persona 5 Royal, but I did hear that there's enough content in the game to justify purchasing it again. But I do agree overall that like there should be like some kind of upgrade option for you. There shouldn't be someone shouldn't feel like that they just missed out. Like, say you bought Persona 5 like a few months before, paid $60 for it, and then they announced Persona 5 Royal is coming, and it has like double the content of previous one, and you're just looking at this and you're like, seriously? Like, so it'll at least be nice if they came in and be like, well, you can upgrade to Royal and get the features for this digital content and throw it in. But the argument I think developers make on their side is that they make so many fundamental changes to the game that they justify re-releasing it. I can't speak on Persona 5 Royal, but obviously you had like the 2D version of Dragon Quest 11 in there. You had a whole other game in there. I don't know. It's a slippery slope type deal. It's a case by case thing, but normally you should have. It's pro consumer to have the DLC available if you only have the original copy.
I guess and I'm interested to hear what you have to say too, Stan, but I guess my take on that is that I'm conflicted because with Persona 5 Royal, they took Persona 5, which was originally, that came out on PS3 and PS4, right? And then they just made the Royal Edition a game that could only run on the PS4, and it was actually enhanced by the PS4. So it was 1080p and They, like everything looked better. And like you said, Eric, it had all that new content in there. So on that hand, I can kind of see the perspective, like, look how much work we did. But on the other end of the spectrum, I'm like, well, no, like, was it more work than making the original game, or was it equal work? And it's like, well, no, it wasn't. And if this is a better version of the game, why didn't you just make that version the first time? Like, well, that's the best version. So just make that version, And I understand that, okay, maybe they needed fan feedback. Maybe they didn't realize these issues until later, or they wanted to do these things, but they didn't have enough time. So I think it feels okay when you have something like Xenoblade Chronicles remake, right? Where it's been a significant amount of time. We've been through different generations, and you can't even really play the original game legally unless you own it used, right? And it just feels like, okay, there's a reason to buy it, and you're enhancing it, you're adding story content. But when it's within the same generation, and you like, it's another $60, and it's like, could you make it like 30? I don't know.
Yeah.
or something. It's just, I don't know. It feels kind of anti-consumer to me. And you are right, Eric. It's mainly JRPGs that do this.
Yeah, and it's context too, because like you said before, Persona 5 came out in Japan on PS3 first.
And
then this one is a full-on version made specifically for the PS4. And all the enhanced editions, everything. So like I said, it's kind of it's a case-by-case thing. One version might be justified over the other in terms of what you get from it, and like, especially like you said, if there's like a huge generation gap, like if the previous version of the game is on a discontinued console now, then yeah, there's definitely a justified reason to get it. You get it on the newer console, you don't have to go out and look for the old console in the game to get it, assuming you don't emulate. But yeah, but this isn't, like you said, it's not so much a problem in the West. They just offer it separate DLC and enhancements and such like that on a normal basis. But
Stan, what do you got?
It's like, can you justify it? That's the biggest question. You ask yourself each time, can it be justified?
Yeah, I guess it is kind of bringing up Persona 5 Royal Edition, or the Royal, or whatever it's called.
Right.
That came out and was $60 new. And so from that perspective, Dragon Quest XI S at $40 doesn't seem as bad. Right. But
well, it was 60 on Switch, right?
Yeah, if you compare it directly to that, it doesn't seem as bad. But yeah, it's I don't know. I'm more on the negative side of it. Like, I don't like it. Like, I think there should be a path to upgrade your current with the caveat that, like, if it's within the same console generation, right? Persona 5 existed as a game on the PS4. Now there's a better Persona 5 on the PS4. Like, give people opportunity to pay $20 to $30, right, to upgrade their version to that version. Like,
I'll say this too: if you're ever worried about buying a game and thinking there may be a better version, unfortunately, you live in an era now where that's always a gamble, especially if it's a popular title. There's always a chance that they're going to add more and make like some big enhanced version of it and re-release it. I guarantee if like Final Fantasy 16 is real popular, they may release like a full-on FF16 special enhanced edition for PS7.
Well, that'll be a new generation.
Not PS7, PS6 or something PS6. Like that. I'm getting way ahead of myself.
Well, they already do, like other publishers. Like, I know, like Ubisoft, they come out with Assassin's Creed for $60, but then there's like an $80 to $100 version you can also get at launch, like some legendary edition or something, right? But then that legendary edition will be $60 within like 4 or 5 months, later, maybe a year later, like,
and the content that's like given to you for free, well, not for free, but within that package deal is like not even released yet. So
yeah. So there's always like a better version of the game these days, like for these big AAA games. And you can either pay a lot, like up front, to have that version on launch, or you can just wait and it'll be the price of the it'll be around $50 to $60, you know, half a year or a year from now. So
I guess with that doesn't bother me as much though, because like you pointed out, it's available at launch, right?
it was there, yeah.
So if I had the option at launch of Persona 5 or Dragon Quest 11, like we were talking about, you know, for the theme of this episode, if I had the option to buy either version on day one, but maybe pay like 10 more bucks or something for the definitive edition, well, I'd buy the definitive edition for $70. Like, you know, and I wouldn't even mind. I would be like, this is fine, you know.
A lot of times, not even the developers know there's going to be a definitive edition in the future, so it's kind of hard to offer that.
Do you think
they should see how it sells the original game first, right? And then if there's enough of a base there, then they're like, okay, let's make some enhancements. And
the definitive edition of Dragon Quest is a little bit of a special circumstance because they had such a problem getting the game to work on
they're really milking that special circumstance.
Right. But while they were at it, they're like, hey, why don't we do something else cool? Why don't we take the 16-bit version from the 3DS and throw it in there while we're at it? And because S came out such a long way down the line that everyone in Japan already owns like the PS4 version or the PC version already. So it's like, we just put so much work into getting this game to work and run on the Switch. Is there anything that we can bait and hook up current Japanese players to play it again? Because already the portable aspect is appealing, but you know, they did the pretty awesome thing on top of that and put the 3DS's 16-bit mode on there and enhanced that and put enough content in there to justify definitely as a Japanese player to go out and get it again. Because I think it came out like 3 years after the initial release.
Eric, I think you're on to something big here that I didn't even consider. I'm ashamed that I didn't even think of this, but I think you're onto something big here. So to us Americans, you know, we all live in America. So for our perspective, these Japanese companies are screwing us, right? With these re-releases, because it seems like it comes out like a year later, right? But to the Japanese initial release, because Dragon Quest and Persona 5 both came out in Japan first. You know, by the time they get that enhanced version, it's been like 3 or 4 years, right? But to us, it seems like, what the hell, man? I just bought this. Like, you know?
18 months later or whatever.
Yeah. I was exaggerating a little bit with a year, but yeah. So I think that's a very good point, Eric, that you brought up, that, you know, maybe there's kind of a regional issue there with release dates that's making it seem more nefarious than it is. But it does make me want to just, for JRPGs that I'm not like really hyped about, it does make me want to wait, right?
Yeah.
You know, for Persona 6, they've done this for Persona 4 and Persona 5 now. So Persona 6, when that does come out, it's going to occur to me like, maybe I should just wait for the Royal Edition, you know? So
there's always going to be sales too. So if you don't want to pay full price for the game again, I mean, and if you've already beaten it once, are you really tempted to go back a second time right away? It's, you know, wait till it gets cheaper, maybe trade your old copy in or sell your old copy. And, you know, if you see that the S version is on sale for like what's $40 now and it's like $10 to $15, and you're like, wow, I really want to play through it again a second time. I really want to try that 2D mode. Yeah. It's like, wait for a sale.
That would be like a fair price in my mind. Like that should have been available, like to DLC. Upgrade, like to upgrade my current version. Right. So yeah, once it hits in kind of the $20-$25 range, it would be more.
If you got Xbox Game Pass, you're good to go.
Oh yeah, it's a steal if you have that.
It's just straight out available on there.
Yeah. I still think it's anti-consumer, but I will acknowledge Game Pass changes things. So let's wrap this up here and just say, are you guys going to purchase this version of Dragon Quest XI on console? I do think it's anti-consumer, but I am going to buy it.
I already bought it.
I'm a hypocrite. So
I have for Switch. Why would I buy it again?
Because it looks better. And it's 60 frames per second.
No.
There's
That's why I'm not
Eric, you're
specifying
supposed to be the Dragon Quest fan on the show.
I'm not a big tech junkie as you think I am. 60
Mhm.
frames per second will not motivate me.
Yeah. So because you already experienced all the extra content that exists right with this S version on the Switch, there's not a huge incentive to buy it once again for the
Yeah.
I wanna-
There's no extra content from getting it on the PS4 version.
So I prefer to play that game on console. I don't like playing it on my Switch, to be honest. So
I mean, your Switch it can be a console too.
yeah, but it doesn't look as good, right? It looks substantially better, the S version. So I like to get as close to that version as possible. So that's why I'm going to buy it.
I like to think there's some Square Enix employee or executive watching this, and then Hat is just like, "Oh, it's anti-consumer. I'm going to buy it." Right, and then they're just like, got him, right, got him.
It's just like excellent.
Yeah,
let's push it further next time.
Yeah, we could have done $50. He would have bought it.
Yeah, we'll see where the line is.
Yeah. For me, I'm not gonna get it just because I just played Dragon Quest XI last year. Probably about a year ago on Switch. I didn't get it like.
Is there a physical version of this
launched.
for console?
I believe so. Yes, I think so.
I don't know.
New one. The new one, Dragon
Quest
XI S for PS4.
If there's a cool cover, Eric, like unique cover for the console version of this, is that going to appeal more to you?
No.
I thought I got him. Okay, keep going, Stan. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I played the game so recently that to buy it again when I have a bunch of other games in my backlog that I need to get to, it's not really. I shouldn't, like, financially, I should not do that. It's considering I have so many.
Yeah, but you know how easy it is to make money in that game, Stan? Just go to the casino. It's almost like real money, right?
No, not exactly.
Just know how to use your pet powers.
Yeah, well, I guess you can't pay the rent with
Dragon Quest currency. Yeah,
correct. Yeah. So,
I mean, Hat, remember, I still haven't played Witcher 3. I can't be buying Dragon Quest 11 again and playing through it again.
That's true. I gotta
prioritize.
That's your sin. Yeah, you should play that over Christmas, dude. You know, you have some time off. You can play through some Witcher.
I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but I own the game on PS4, right? I just haven't gotten around to it. But now that the CD Projekt Red is saying they're going to upgrade it for free, I'm like, well, I might as well just wait for the PS5 version someday and play the best version available, like the first time I play the game.
I want to argue with that, but I can't because I think that makes sense. So anyways, before we move on to our discussion on the 35th anniversary of Dragon Quest and some of the, the creator of Dragon Quest, his teaser words on what we can expect at the anniversary, I do want to tell you all about our media partner at rpgfan.com. I mean, they are awesome source of RPG news. We use them regularly. They're always tweeting out, the latest news and kind of writing these articles, talking about the past and what to expect in the future, doing these featurettes. Really excellent website to go to. They have game reviews on there, soundtrack reviews. I mean, we're talking about game reviews all the way back to the late 90s. So definitely a lot of stuff to check out on there. Other RPG podcasts, in addition to our own on there, they have Random Encounter, which is RPG news, and then Retro Encounter, which is more review RPG centered. And then they also have Rhythm Encounter, which is a music-based RPG podcast. So a lot of content on there. And they also have a YouTube page where they're regularly putting out reviews as well. And their latest reviews are Sakuna of Rice and Ruin, which got an 85. That was the game me and Eric were kind of like, looks cool, but we're not going to buy unless it got amazing reviews. So maybe 85 is not too bad. And then Trails of Cold Steel 4 got an 85 as well. I think that might be a little controversial. I don't know, but that's still a pretty good review. I know that they definitely want you to go read the review. That's kind of a pet peeve among journalists when they're like, oh, all they ever care about is the number, right?
Yeah.
But somebody actually like crafted this review, and they're really well written. So definitely go check them out. And I think you guys are going to enjoy it. So to move on to our next topic here, Dragon Quest 35th anniversary. It's a big deal. It's coming up next year on May 27th. And recently, the creator of Dragon Quest, Yuji Horii, stated at a Dragon Quest X event this statement, which has been translated. So keep that in mind. He said, "Thank you very much for today. Next year, Dragon Quest will celebrate its 35th anniversary. I believe we will be able to make all sorts of announcements in regards to that. And there's still a whole lot of fun to look forward to. And Astolia, I don't know, it's the world of Dragon Quest X, the online game. So please continue to support Dragon Quest in the future. Thank you very much." There's a lot of speculation out there about this statement. Many people have, I think, obviously speculated that perhaps, well, anyways, we'll get into some of the speculation. Let me cover some of the other stuff with this. So to look back at prior anniversaries, just as kind of a compare and contrast, right? If you look back at the 30th anniversary, a lot of people thought, oh, there's going to be all these big announcements at that presentation. And there really wasn't. It was a 1-hour video and it had 90 seconds of games. And all the games that they showed were games that were previously announced. So they didn't really announce anything new. And then they also had like interviews talking about the past games and creation of it. And then also like this art illustration book that you could buy. But I mean, they did show more of games, but not anything new, right? Dragon Quest XI was already announced. Dragon Quest VIII for 3DS was already announced. Dragon Quest Builders, you know, all that stuff was already announced, but they showed more of it. So this has led some people to believe that perhaps they might just go that route again and not really show you anything except just kind of focus on history of Dragon Quest. Or some people are expecting some big announcements. First thing, I think, to me anyways, that's kind of obvious, is he literally brought up Dragon Quest X. So I think that there would probably, anyways, people are expecting all sorts of things, whether it's just some DLC for Dragon Quest X, possibly a Western release of Dragon Quest X. Some of the discussion regarding that is just basically why they haven't done it in the past. And it came down to developers saying that, you know, seasonal events differ per region. The demographic is different. So they have to like change the seasonal events depending on the region. And there's multiple servers for each geographic location. They have to have community support. Basically a lot of like, God, that sounds like a lot of work. We don't really want to do that. But the producer of Dragon Quest X stated recently that if they were to do it, that Dragon Quest X coming to the West would probably be an offline version. So people are kind of speculating that Yuji Horii's statement here might mean something along those regards. Some of the other, and we'll quickly go through this, some of the other speculation is Dragon Quest 12. You know, Dragon Quest 11 was big. Maybe we'll get Dragon Quest 12 announced. Dragon Quest, The Adventure of Dai, which is like an action RPG that was announced for consoles back in May 2020. I guess it's based on like an anime series. Is that right, Stan?
Yeah.
It's based on the anime of a Dragon Quest story that they made, I believe, for like a anime video in the early 90s.
Okay.
And it's being brought back in a form like this.
Yeah, there's like a current anime, Adventures of Dai, that's running right now, I think.
Cool.
Or maybe was recently released. So they're making a game to go along with that.
Okay. So that's, people are thinking that maybe, you know, that game might be there. There's a new Dragon Quest Monsters title that was announced back in November. And so people think that maybe that might be there, right? And then the big one that there's some scuttlebutt about is the Dragon Quest IX making a reoccurrence or reappearance at this show, because there's this rumor or discussion about remaking the game. We have a little quote here from the executive producer of Dragon Quest IX, who said, "We've been thinking about doing a remake of Dragon Quest IX for a while now. Dragon Quest 1 to 8 have already been remade or ported multiple times, while 9 hasn't." Although I guess obviously we have it on the 3DS, but Dragon Quest IX was on portable console. It has a Street Pass communications, treasure maps, and other features unique to the game, making it difficult to pinpoint which hardware we should choose to remake it on. Although there are probably many people who have only played the story once, it could be nice to have a Dragon Quest IX that just simply lets you go through the story. And there's been some other comments on this as well. The director of Dragon Quest IX said, I would really want to play, even if only the graphics are upgraded. A Dragon Quest IX remake with Dragon Quest 11 level graphics would be amazing. So there's been some discussion about that. So there's a lot of what's going to be there. But, you know, do you guys think that this is going to be a series of big announcements or one big announcement at this 35th anniversary? Or do you guys think it's going to be more in line with probably the 30th anniversary? What do you guys think?
I think it's going to, I think they may tease Dragon Quest 12. I don't think they'll go full on out with it, but I think they'll give an acknowledgement in some way that it is in the works. Maybe show the title and what the subtitle is called to it, and some logo. Maybe show like an artwork or two. But if Dragon Quest 12 does get announced, I don't think it'll go beyond that. Yeah. I think they would make a very particular special event, not with the anniversary or anything else getting in the way. For Dragon Quest 10, as you said, there is too much trouble to get an online service running in North America and Europe. And you would have to hire full teams dedicated to keeping that game up. And Square Enix, in their eyes, with Dragon Quest being nowhere near as popular as Final Fantasy, they, in the West, they see that as a major risk factor, which I don't particularly blame them.
Right.
But they, like you said, they did mention that they were interested in bringing an offline version of the game, which is very possible to do, because if you've played Dragon Quest X online, you can play the mass majority of that game by yourself. Like the entire main story you can go through no problem. And there's even features in the game, I believe, you can bring up NPCs to join you instead of like actual online members and content that calls for it. So it is definitely possible to make that. What I do wonder is, if they bring it over, will they just give us the base game? And how would they add the expansions in? Would they just give us expansions up till now in there? That's the part I would question. Like, if you get that and then they'll release DLC over time, or that's what I really wonder on how they would structure it.
Here's what I think. Number one, to quickly touch on what you kind of brought up here. I agree that when Dragon Quest X came out in 2012, that that it made sense not to bring it to the West, because it wasn't where it needed to be, right? But since that date, I think they invested a lot in the West with various spin-off games, re-releases on DS, and then Dragon Quest 11 has just really sold really well. So I think that there's a possibility now where they're like, oh, like there's an actual fan base here for that. But I think like what you just brought up is that there's a lot of work to port that over, and it would be a lot of work. But I do think that if they were to make a Dragon Quest online game now, like Dragon Quest 12 was an online game, I think that it would absolutely be a Western game, a Western release, in addition to Japan.
The problem is that even FF14 and 11, to an extent, have to justify to Final Fantasy players that it's worth going into a subscription.
Right.
But that's an even harder sell with Dragon Quest.
Regardless, there could be like a offline version or something like that, and we can kind of get into that.
Absolutely.
But here's what I think is going to be at this presentation, guys. I think that people are looking at these announcements as like a birthday thing, like it's a corporation, it's not a person, right? Like they're not. There's an arbitrary date, and they're not going to announce $100 million project on that date unless it's advantageous for them. And so they're looking at it like, who's the people watching this stream? Dragon Quest fans. All of the people that watch a 1 hour Dragon Quest stream or presentation are going to buy Dragon Quest 12, whether they announce it on May 27th or they announce it on July 27th. There's no advantage to announcing Dragon Quest 12 or any other big announcement on that stage, because all the people in the audience are already going to buy that game. So they would want to announce that at like a E3 press conference or something where they would have more eyes than just Dragon Quest fans. So I think that if it's already announced beforehand, it'll make an appearance, but I don't see them really revealing it in a big way, because they would want it to make a big explosion at like a State of Play or like a Nintendo Direct or something like that, because that's all the people watching this are people that are already going to buy it. That's why if you look at like the Final Fantasy 30th anniversary, people are so disappointed about that. But what did they sell you? They sold people stuff that only Final Fantasy fans would buy, right? Like Final Fantasy wine bottles. People that aren't Final Fantasy fans are not going to buy Final Fantasy wine bottles, right? That's why at the 30th anniversary of Dragon Quest, they sold Dragon Quest art illustration books, because only Dragon Quest fans are watching this and only Dragon Quest fans are going to buy this. So they just look at it like it's a commercial. And so I just don't see there being really an advantageous reason to reveal something there. Now, it is a weird time this past year, and it's possible that they could break the mold, and announce something. But I don't think that would be the best place for them to do that. And I think they kind of understand that it would be better for us to, like, I don't know, have it in like an event where there's going to be more than just Dragon Quest fans watching it.
Well, I suppose could do. That is a good point. That's something I hadn't considered, is that they want, if it's a big announcement like Dragon Quest X coming to the West, or like Dragon Quest 12, like the first time it's been revealed, they want as big an audience as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they would have Nintendo maybe, like, or Sony, like, partner with them to do like a direct or a State of Play, and then announce their like reveal Dragon Quest 12 on one of those videos.
Mm-hmm.
But then time it with the 35th anniversary, which I believe is in May. Like when the first game was released, it was May of 1986. So they might do something like that, not have like an official event, like 35th anniversary event, but time the announcement close to the date or the month of the actual anniversary date.
I could see that, because that would be similar to the 30th anniversary, where these games were announced a month prior or 2 months prior, right? And they showed a trailer and like other people saw it. And then they showed more of the game at the anniversary, but the initial announcement was not at the anniversary. I do think there's a strong possibility they'll announce some kind of Dragon Quest X, like, hey, log in this month and there'll be a festival and Dragon Quest X, or something like that. But not. I would be surprised if they announced a translated Dragon Quest X at an event where people are speaking Japanese.
Yeah,
hey, it's coming in English.
That would be something that is like in a Western, like Nintendo Direct or something, right? Like,
right, because none of those Japanese people watching it would be like, I don't care.
Yeah, they're like, what's in it for me? Yeah.
Whoop-de-doo.
And then if they're curious enough, they can go watch the English Direct, right, and be like, oh, what's it gonna look like?
Like what if we watched a State of Play and they're like, Final Fantasy VII Remake coming in German? I feel like, but everyone in Germany is like, woo,
Yeah, right. Eric, got yeah, that makes sense.
You look like you kept wanting to say something and I kept talking. I apologize.
Well, what I can almost guarantee that will happen when may not even be within this presentation. Something I can almost guarantee, I would put money down on it, is we will get more re-releases on the Switch. We already have the first 3 games. They will very likely put 4, 5, and 6 of the DS versions as digital only titles on the Switch. The game already has upscale features on mobile devices. It's mostly just porting that over and putting it from portrait to landscape, which I believe the DS versions are already in the landscape-like format. Dragon Quest 9, that's kind of a toss-up because they kind of still sound like they are deciding what they want to put that on. It could very easily go on a mobile platform, and it would make sense, especially in Japan. But that could very well make its way to the Switch also. No, I don't think they would do a full Dragon Quest 11
Me either.
remake of it. I think that's a little too much. I think it would mostly take the kind of character models like say Dragon Quest 7 3DS and maybe do like an enhancement to work with like a 720p 1080p scale. The only thing I would really question is how they would work with NPCs, because Dragon Quest 9 is a little bit of a weird thing. You have your 3D characters, and then like important characters are NPCs are also 3D. But when you play the game, you'll notice that not important NPCs are actually 2D. It sticks out like a sore thumb too. So there's a lot of stuff they would have to remake from the ground up for that game. So that is a pretty big task in itself. I'd probably get like some third party studio, honestly, to work on it and get it out.
Yeah,
I think
I kind of wish they would make the Dragon Quest or 9 or another one in the same style and engine as Dragon Quest 11. That would be more work. However, they've
Dragon Quest 10.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've already made like the assets, right, that they had to do for 11. I'm sure they could reuse some of them, right, and try and make a remake of a previous Dragon Quest title. And I wonder how well that would do. Like maybe they would try that with one of the more popular American titles, like Dragon Quest 8 or 5, and then
8 already looks so good though that you would only need that HD enhance it.
Well,
so maybe 5 would be a better opportunity.
I do think that
I hate to dick around with that, but there's already a PS2 version of Dragon Quest 5.
That's Japanese.
I have it right over there.
Well, so I don't think they would do it, and I don't think they would choose Dragon Quest 9 to make it a Dragon Quest 11 style graphics, just because, like you brought up, Stan, 5 and 8 are much more popular in the West, and also Dragon Quest 11 is done the best in the West. It's been a huge hit in the West compared to prior entries, and that is more in the style of 8. Whereas Dragon Quest 9, the entire main party is a silent protagonist, and you're just kind of watching other character, like a story there, but as more of an observer for your entire cast. And I think that if they were going to spend that much money remaking a game like AAA Dragon Quest, AAA, whatever that means, Dragon Quest 11 style, that I think that they would probably choose Dragon Quest 8, to be honest, because 9's just a totally different direction. And I think they would want to, further tack on to the momentum that they already have. And so given 8 sold well also in the West, even the Western version of Dragon Quest 11, when it was announced or released, it had like I believe there was some kind of special cosmetic DLC for Western fans that allowed your character to have like the bandana from Dragon Quest 8. And so I think they kind of recognize that. So I think that, I guess 9 would be a little weird to me. It would be like if Square did a AAA remake of Final Fantasy V. Like, Final Fantasy V is a good game, but it's not the most popular one, So.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times too, when they do HD remasters or remakes of the sort, they usually go to third-party studios and say, "Hey, can you just work on this, and we'll go, keep making Dragon Quest 12." Now, granted, Dragon Quest famously always goes to third-party studios for their main titles. I think 11 may actually 10 and 11, I think, may be the actual first time they use in-house properties to make their games. because if you can backtrack, and almost every game has had a third-party developer. Like 8 and 9 had level 5 developers. The DS remakes had I forget the names on top of my head. So they're never above using third party. So I would just say get a third party studio, take enhance all the character sprites in Dragon Quest 9. You don't need to do a full on remake. The way it's structured is great. The only real problem is it looks really outdated on the DS. So it's just a matter of making the character models look better and put some quality of life features in there. Maybe reactivate the online features. I really don't think you need the online features because the game itself is a full-on RPG without those online features. So, like Yuji said, you could just probably put the whole game on there without the online stuff, and it would be okay.
Cool.
But you know, for a little better measure too, maybe put 7 3DS on the Switch and maybe a full-on enhanced HD version for Dragon Quest 8 to come out on Switch, Sony, PC. You know,
see,
that'd be real nice too.
This is a freaking Dragon Quest problem. Like, this is okay. We're going to talk about this. Okay, so Dragon Quest 8 looks great on the PS2, right? But then they release it on 3DS with no turn-based battles. Like, it's like you run and see them on the map, and then it's got other quality of life upgrades, right?
You mean no random encounters?
Yeah.
Right.
What'd I say?
Turn-based battles.
Oh, thank you. Yes. No. That's good catch there, because that is not the same thing. Yeah. No random encounters. And then it's got all these other quality of life updates to it that I think make it a better game, but it's does not look anywhere near as beautiful as the PS2 version. And if you notice that this is the same freaking problem that I have with Dragon Quest 11 with this new edition, where it's like not as good looking, but it has all the other best crap in it.
Right.
Have you seen the mobile version before?
Yeah, but you told me I thought about buying that, and I asked you about it. You told me it runs at like 5 frames per second.
Oh, no. Don't get me wrong. Don't buy it. It runs very poorly, but it looks really good.
Oh, okay.
Like they upscaled it very nicely. Now, did they properly optimize it with that upscaling? No. So but it does come to
really
show that you could.
Yeah.
You can add a little more flair to it if you want, but I think the game by itself I'm sorry, excuse me. If Dragon Quest 8 just gets upscaled to 1080p, it looks perfectly fine. The game is so timeless looking,
right,
that you don't need to remake it in any way. You just need to just enhance the resolution, maybe add some more texture to maybe like the grass or something, to make it, stand out and be a little more vibrant. But that game holds up so incredibly well that if anyone picked it up, like the last thing I would still think people would complain about is the graphics, because the art style is so well translated into that game.
Yeah,
it's timeless.
Pat is just frustrated that there's no best version of the game.
Right. They need to stop doing this.
Yeah, and I agree. It is kind of like you wish there was just like some version of it would come out on the Switch and just be the best version of Dragon Quest 8 or 5 or whatever that you could get.
Yeah, Dragon Quest does this particularly. It's a particular issue that annoys me. But I mean, it's present in Final Fantasy 2. I mean, Final Fantasy 6, there's no best way to play that because there's a Super Nintendo version, but it's got a crappy localization. The Game Boy Advance version has great localization, but it has crappy sound. You don't want to play the PlayStation version because that has horrible cutscenes in it, and it's just slow. And
loading time.
Right. So it's kind of like just, and like the Steam version looks like somebody just magic marker. Like it doesn't look good. That's not even, every version's better than that one. So
I think the West has just more limited options than Japan for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now I will say, I mean, everyone's gonna just raise an eyebrow and be like, when they hear me say this, but the mobile versions of Dragon Quest 1 to 6 are very legit ports. I mean, they're turn-based games. They're upscaled beautifully, especially the DS versions. Like I'm playing on an iPhone 10 and it upscales to my full screen beautifully and runs great. The only version that doesn't run great is 8, but all those versions, and they're less than $20 each, because if you want the DS versions of 4, 5, and 6, like we've said in a previous episode where we talked about 3DS and 2DS games below 20, good luck finding those games under $20.
They did just, for Final Fantasy IV, they did just release a patch to the Steam version that fixes the UI. So it's not the mobile phone UI, which I thought that just bring that up, that is not now maybe the best way to play that game on PC with not the mobile UI. Yeah.
Updated on the mobile and it looks really good now, because before the resolution wasn't proper because it didn't keep up with modern phones.
Right.
But the new updates is very nice. Unfortunately, the frame rate in battles are still a little woo in Final Fantasy IV on mobile, but it looks really good on there.
But on Steam now, they have it to where it's like the menu system is like a traditional Final Fantasy UI, right? Where it's just,
I need to check that out.
It's not like giant buttons, like it's a phone, but on your PC. They fixed that. So I just, there's might want to check that out.
I'm curious.
Yeah. Let's keep going, guys. Real quick. Dragon Quest 12. Will we see it in 2021, like an announcement? Real quick. What do you think?
I think so, just because Dragon Quest 11 has been out in Japan for a very long time.
Yeah. And from what we know, they started working on it in 2019 at some point. So by some point in 2021, they should have like a trailer or something to show.
Now, the bigger question is, what kind of game will it be? Will they do a big full-scale RPG like Dragon Quest 11? Are they going to go back to the handhelds?
Dear God.
Well, with that type of game, I mean, with Dragon Quest nowadays, it can really go one way or the other. Now, they always keep their core roots intact.
Mm-hmm.
There's never any doubt about that. But what device they decide to go to is usually where everyone is. So like a mobile phone, or I don't think they would release on mobile. I think they release on a proper console. But I think like it could be like a Switch exclusive game. Like I don't think they're above doing stuff like that.
Right.
I think because Dragon Quest 11 was the one that was not the first successful game here, but it was the first one that really.
Dragon Quest 8 was successful, and Dragon Quest 5's re-release was successful on the DS, but it wasn't anything like Dragon Quest 11.
Yeah, Dragon Quest 11 definitely surpassed any previous Western release, and I think a big part of that was the graphics and just how beautiful the game is on the Switch or the PS4 or otherwise. So I think they have to match that in terms of visuals, how the game looks. And so if they can do that on the Switch, they should do it on the Switch and the PS4, if possible. Although by the time they release it, the next gen consoles will be in full swing. So they have and then do you hold back that version so you can also release it on the Switch? They're going to have this same issue they had with Dragon Quest 11, deciding like how they're going to port it.
This will be a future podcast topic. I can already tell. And what they're going to do is they're going to release a crappy version on the PS5 and on the Switch, and then they're going to release an enhanced version later that only capitalizes on the PS5, and then we'll have the same episode again where I'm sitting here complaining about it.
Well, here's the thing with Dragon Quest 11, they did make 2 different versions in Japan. They made the full console version, and
so it's even worse.
But this time, though, the 3DS is discontinued,
Yeah.
And there isn't a dedicated handheld made by Sony or Nintendo. The Switch is the console in handheld.
Mhm.
So I don't think they'll make a full dedicated version for the Switch, but I do think that because the demake version of Dragon Quest XI was so successful, I think they still may do two different versions of the game. One, the main 3D game and the 2D version.
What if we're getting off on a serious tangent here, but I just have to say it. What if, as part of the 35th anniversary, they provide a Dragon Quest VIII demake?
I'd be game.
I would buy that in a heartbeat.
I think demakes are awesome, and I think Final Fantasy also should get in line with it.
An actual demake, not like the Final Fantasy 15 chibi demake.
Like, just imagine. I'm sorry, this is super tangent, but I'll just say it real quick. Imagine Final Fantasy 16 as what you get, but they also offer a demake version that's like an ATB Final Fantasy 6 like turn-based battle game. That's like Final Fantasy 6 graphics, and you move around the world map.
Well, they're probably gonna have some crappy like classic mode that's just like the super easy version, just to like really. But yeah, that would be cool. That'd be really cool. I would be down with that.
But yes, I would be 100% on board with you with a Dragon Quest VIII demake.
Yeah,
that seems like an announcement that would fit into a 35th anniversary type of thing, right? For Dragon Quest fans, right?
Right. And
who
if
want
they
to experience 8 again in a different way.
They get Nintendo on board. Nintendo can be like, it's only available for 4 months digitally, and then they can pull it away, and that'll be a whole nother controversy. But anyways, let's keep going, guys. We got one question left here, one topic here. So speaking of Dragon Quest, like we have been this entire episode, and the fact that we had the 35th anniversary coming up next year, big deal, very well cherished and beloved JRPG. What is y'all's favorite Dragon Quest entry and why? I've only played 3 of them. Well, technically 4, but Eric, you've played them all. What is your favorite of them all?
I don't really have a favorite.
Oh, come on.
It's really depending on my mood. One week I'll be like, man, Dragon Quest 5 is really the best. And then
your current
next
mood.
week I'll be like, 11 is the best. And then next week I'll be like, man, 8's really the best. I mean, I'm playing through 5 again on my phone right now. And that is such a beautiful game in itself.
We reviewed this game, by the way, so if you guys want to go check that out, keep going, Eric.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. Go watch it. But like each one offers something unique. Like everyone's like, oh, it's just like the same turn-based battle game every time. It's like, no, they offer something unique every game without taking away the fundamentals of what people love about Dragon Quest. Like the third game offers the job system. No, not the job system. They offer the class recruitment system for the first time. And then the fourth game offers something unique as in like different chapters told through perspective of different characters. And then 5 tells you a story through generations of one character's life.
Yep.
And 6 introduces like
bad dialogue,
the job system, in dual alternate worlds. 7, they expand upon the job system and just it's like a more episodic type of game. And then Dragon Quest 8 is like where it like just got like the narrative just got like really enhanced to have a more narrative strength and experience. So like each one just like offers something, and then like, and it's just whatever I feel like. Sometimes I feel like just going through the classic Dragon Quest 3 type deal. Then one day I want to go through the modern experience of 11. So like I said, it's really hard to find a favorite. I think what they do great is they always find a way to make a better game in some way every time. Like I would still say 5 is much better than 6, but 6 still brought great new things to enhance the experience of the previous. So, of course, I would probably say 11 is probably the best Dragon Quest game right now, because it perfectly meshes modern with old together to offer an experience that I think other JRPGs are severely lacking and forgetting nowadays. So, I mean, if you put a gun to my head, I would probably say 11 is the best Dragon Quest right now. But I have a severe fondness for games like 5 and 8.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I can just to quickly tack onto that Dragon Quest 3 was my favorite. I really like that game. That's a great game. I still play it every now and again. I forget how good it is. We played Dragon Quest 5 for this podcast. Fantastic RPG. I've played Dragon Quest 1, but all you do is grind in that game. So whatever, it's good for what it is. But yeah, I do agree with you. Dragon Quest 11 is my favorite of those ones. I do have thoughts on this, but I know, Stan, that's the only game that you've played. So I kind of want to give you a chance to, before I just like diarrhea of the mouth, anything you could possibly say.
11 is my favorite by default because it's the only one I've beaten. I have played 8, but I only borrowed it from a friend back in the PS2 days. And I only got probably 4 or 5 hours into it. So it's not enough to make a judgment on the game other than like something surface level. But 11 is my favorite, not just because it's the only one I've beaten, but it was
it's one of your favorite JRPGs, right, of this generation? Well, anyways, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Keep going.
But what I enjoyed about it the most was the visuals and the music, because I played the orchestral version, and so that's the only version of the music I know. And I went back on YouTube and listened to some of the MIDI versions, and I'm like, I'm glad I held off and played the game with the orchestral version, because I think it does enhance the game.
What a hipster! What a hipster! Anyways, keep going.
Yeah, in terms of the story and the gameplay, like the story is very much kind of like a fairy tale-esque chosen one kind of plot, which is not the most compelling for me, but what it is very relaxing. Like I'm not having to put a lot of thought into like
to be fair, it does flip it on you some.
It does. Like in Act 2 of the game, I don't want to spoil anything, but it gets things get a lot more intense and like more kind of like the narrative kind of gets flipped on its head a little bit, and that was like really interesting. That was my favorite part of the story wise of the game, was the second act. But yeah, overall it's like a relaxing turn-based RPG for me anyway, because it has good music, good visuals. The story is not complicated or not like complex, it's very straightforward, and so it's just it's a long game. I actually wish it was a bit shorter, but overall I enjoyed my experience from beginning to end.
Not long enough.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. I mean, the Dragon Quest games that I have played, I've enjoyed all of them, to be honest. But Dragon Quest 11 is just something special, I think. And it was one of the first games in a long time where when I finished it, including it's not post game content, it's required content, but the post game in this case is like 30 extra hours of story. So it's not like a final boss, an extra boss or something like that. But once I finished that content, that bonus content, and then I saw that, the final cutscene and the credits rolled and it just finished, I sat there thinking like, this is a classic RPG. This is a classic JRPG. 10, 15 years from now, people are going to talk about this game like, oh, this is a classic JRPG. Like, and it was weird because I haven't really gotten that feeling from a new JRPG in a long time, where like I finished it and I'm like, this is a classic,
Yeah. I think that's because there's something about them that like maybe they have the visuals and the music nailed, like say Octopath Traveler, right?
Right.
But there's like a convoluted combat system that's not straightforward, you know, or there's like
the story doesn't.
the story is not there, you know, like
Right.
but Dragon Quest 11 is like, yeah, it hits all the right beats for a classic, like you're saying.
And I just kind of, yeah, I mean, I really adore the fact too that it didn't really try to change too much. I mean, it's clearly it's better graphics, you know, they've done little enhancements here and there, but by and large, it's still that classic formula, and it's successful despite that. Like it's successful for that, right? Whereas, you know, I love Final Fantasy, and they're just constantly like tweaking it and trying to like concoct like this new blend of Final Fantasy that's going to be uber successful, and they can't ever find it. And like, meanwhile, Dragon Quest XI's over here, and it just surpassed 6 million copies, and it hasn't even gone on the Xbox yet. Right. Like that's pretty freaking good. So I think that that's like really just something special to point to and say that that can still be successful. And to all the people out there that say that Dragon Quest XI doesn't bring anything new to the table, I have to disagree, because I think that the way they present Sylvando, right, is something new. Whereas Sylvando kind of, in my mind anyways, kind of redefined like a strong, like what the different colors of how strong a masculine character can be, right? And I think because he's super feminine, right? But he's usually, with that type of character, an RPG would kind of present them as, you know, the humor of the party, but they're kind of like mentally weak, or like they can't handle it, and they need, you know, like the muscly Viking guy to like be the rock. But Sylvando's the rock of the party. I mean, he's the emotionally the most calm and just like, okay, guys, we're going to get through this character and the entire game. And I thought that was a very interesting that they kind of changed that dynamic with a very flamboyant character like that. Like, despite the fact that he is the way he is, he's still a strong person, right? And I think that that was something that resonated with a lot of people out there. And I think that that is something new that the prior Dragon Quest games did not do. So,
well, Dragon Quest is always famous for having colorful and diverse characters. Like even Dragon Quest 8, all 4 characters like are unique and distinct from one another. That creates interesting conflicts with each other in situations. Like, you know, your main character is a reserved one. Your Genghis is more of the brash, outgoing. Jessica is the,
but that's more of a JRPG dynamic, whereas this is like, dude, okay, let's just say it, he's clearly gay. I think that's like from the story, from Sylvando's story, and like with his father and everything like that, they're laying it on pretty thick without saying it. And I think that's generally the fan base assumption is that he's probably.
Well, more what I was going to say is Dragon Quest XI just exemplifies the ideology of
the series
diversity in all the right ways, and with a whole cast of characters that all work off each other very well, and they don't all feel the same. Like, one of the biggest criticisms of 15 is like, these are all just 4 pretty boys going out on a trip. And then you got a game like Final Fantasy 9 where it's like you got a monkey boy, you have a summoner with a horn, you got a rat girl dragoon and stuff like that. And they all have like distinct characteristics that make them unique. And Dragon Quest XI is also like this. You got your own grandpa in the party.
This is a porn addict.
You got Sylvando. That's a very that's like the optimistic character in the group, the one who's always there to lighten up the party. Yeah. When, even when there's like the darkest moments, Sylvando is there to, bring the party back up, because he's such an optimistic and cheerful person in general. I mean, it's like he's a very, you just can't help but love him. Like, just the kind of person he is. It's like you always wish there was someone that nice and uplifting in your life. Like, like even when you're down or you do something that you shouldn't have and made a mistake, like you have that type of friend.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
If we would talk about Sabendo specifically, but I mean, I could go on each character and what makes them unique and sets himself apart.
I agree with Hat though. Like the character kind of took the archetype of what you would usually see of that character and kind of did something unique and flipped it on its head. You know, where like yes, typically like a kind of more flamboyant male character is not like the rock of the group or not like super dependable, I guess. And that's not, I'm not saying that's right. That's just how the character archetype has been portrayed in the past. And Dragon Quest XI didn't do that. They took a different approach. So that is definitely one of the more memorable characters from the game because of that, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, the thing is too, those are traits of Sylvando, but they don't necessarily define his character.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's important. Yeah.
It's like that's not like it's like if we want to say like his flamboyance, it's like that's not his shtick.
Mhm.
Like he's a person you can talk to. He has his own story arcs and his own conflicts and feelings and everything in the group. And it's not like projected simply through his flamboyance. That's just simply the type of personality he has when he expresses those type of story moments. But like I said, like the flamboyance doesn't define him. It's mostly just a trait of him. He still feels like a human.
Yeah. So anytime you hear IGN regurgitating Dragon Quest XI is a great retro RPG that brings nothing new to the table, asterisk. Yes, it does.
It was probably some reviewer who had to finish the game and speed run it, right, to get that review out or whatever, you know.
I've seen some reviews where they've reviewed the game after getting the first credits, right? And they're like, "Oh, I only got to the end of the game. I haven't done the bonus content, but here's my score for the game." And I'm like, that just doesn't feel right, because in this case, those credits are poorly placed.
If you ask every person that's played Dragon Quest XI what their favorite parts of the game are, they most likely will tell you the world and story or characters.
Yeah,
I think that's where they will go every time. Because like I said, Dragon Quest on a gameplay scale doesn't necessarily bring something new or unique to the table, but it does exemplify and enhance and make better the type of JRPGs that we played, at least in like the PS2 days.
sure.
Where it got to that point, or PS1, and it's taking that type of concept of JRPGs that we love and miss so much, and like made it even grander, if that's a word to say. And that's something that just people have been really clamoring for again, and seeing that type of traditional JRPG on such a full AAA level scale is just, like I said, something a lot of players are missing, especially Final Fantasy fans.
And it's crazy because although Dragon Quest is an older franchise than Final Fantasy, it's kind of in the same ballpark, right? Dragon Quest is a couple years older than Final Fantasy, but to look at where Final Fantasy is, where the general consensus is, you know, the best days are in the past, that the best we can hope for is maybe like a second tier Final Fantasy. That's the general feeling you get from a lot of people, especially if you listen to this podcast. There's that consensus, generally speaking, the way we feel about it. And to look at Dragon Quest and think that, in a lot of people's mind, the very best of the series is the most recent game. So, I mean, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy for a franchise to be as old as it is and still putting out killer games. So
I'll say this, I've gotten a lot more cynical over the years. When a new Final Fantasy gets announced, and you see me on the podcast, there's some optimism, but there's a lot of cynicism on top of it also. We're all very worried about what the game will do next, because the franchise has admittedly gotten too experimental for its own good. A lot of times I feel like sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a really big miss.
We're still
With
waiting
Final Fantasy.
for the hit.
So, but we're always on that fence.
Yeah.
But two franchises come to mind for me personally: Legend of Zelda and Dragon Quest. I always feel like there's something new and great and exciting because there's the quality always shows in matches every time.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of heart and there was a lot of love that went into the game, and they really tried their best to make it feel like a unique experience from the previous one that you feel like you haven't had before, but still giving you the fundamentals still of what you love about that series. And I believe both Legend of Zelda and Dragon Quest keep those ideas together. And that's why I'm still always so excited when a new one of those games come out. And I don't feel like something like Final Fantasy can do that anymore, even when the game is really good and I'll love it. And even if 16 is really good, we're still going to be cynical to an extent about 17 and be like, I mean, let's hope they just stick with what was good with 16 and, not pull any stupid crap in 17.
Well, it's because Dragon Quest, they look at the past and they say, how can we do what we already did, but do it better? Whereas Final Fantasy is like, no, we have to keep changing. We have to keep being something new. What's the grass is always greener. What's the game, the franchise that sold more than us? What are they doing? We should put that in our game.
Oh, an open world game? Our next one needs to be an open world game, even if that doesn't work.
It just feels like they don't know what they want to do with their franchise. Like they're still flinging crap at the wall, and it's just dripping down to the floor and not sticking. I don't know if at this point Square Enix just wants to solidify a type of Final Fantasy, modern Final Fantasy, or they just want to just keep going all over the place and try something completely new every time. Like I get mixed signals all the time from them because they clearly want to make a action RPG hybrid type game.
But it's so
for the series now,
it's so wild that they do all this crap to like make it more appealing to people, and people just hate it.
The core fan bases.
Yeah. I'm just like
every single one. There's some people who are like, this is a good direction if you're going to try and modernize things. And the other side is like, no, this is not a good direction. And so they never please everybody. Yeah.
It's like, let me ask, it's like, what if like they just continue just making games like Final Fantasy 9 and just made bigger and better worlds, like world map, or like Final Fantasy 10 or 12, maybe some like worlds like that. I mean, they just made it bigger and better and just kept like the turn-based combat intact. It's like, I don't think Final Fantasy would be in as bad of a position as it is. I'm not saying it's in a bad position, but I mean, it had 13, which was divisive, and then you had 14 1.0, which was a huge failure, even though it got itself back with with A Realm Reborn, and then Final Fantasy 15 was a hugely divisive game also. Like, they really need to solidify something so people can feel at least comfortable to an extent that what they love fundamentally will be there, because I feel like they've lost a ton of their crowd that was like the pre Final Fantasy 10 era, or maybe even go as far as to say the 12. I think there's a lot of people that dropped out. I know we have a certain guest that we have on here that's just like completely like this, like just completely taken Final Fantasy off his list.
Yeah,
in terms of purchasing future games. So
actively
I don't know,
not buying it.
But to spin it all around, it's like Dragon Quest has just it keeps its foundation solid and it benefits from it.
Yeah, totally agree. Well said. Well, gents, you got anything else to say on the litany of tangents we just went on?
No, I
Buy
don't
some
think.
Dragon Quest games. Fun. I mean, there's cheap versions of it everywhere. If you're someone who's never played one before, hop on our Discord and we can talk to you about it or something other rather.
Yeah. If you didn't buy the Switch version of 11 or the PS4 version, and you can jump into that game for only $40 and get what is like a very, very good version of the game, I would do it. Like I paid $60 for the Switch version, and I thought it was worth it. And this is going to be an enhanced version of that same game for less money. So
it is Stan approved. It's Stan approved.
Good opportunity to jump into the franchise.
Yeah. I had to get the S version at the time because I had to play this beautiful game in 2D.
The 2D mode.
Yeah. If only they offered that on the PS4.
No, it's 100% worth it.
Anyways. Okay. So I think that's going to wrap up this podcast episode. Fun discussion, variety of Dragon Quest topics. If you guys want to continue the conversation, like Eric pointed out, we do have a Discord server that's in the description. So you can just click on the link, join, and we'll be glad to further discuss this with you. Other than that, I think we'll have to catch you at another date. Anyways, look, join our Discord server, follow us on Twitter, and you'll keep up with updates. We're still trying to figure out what we're going to do with Thanksgiving and all that. We might just take next week off, but we'll have a podcast episode coming out fairly soon. Talk to you all guys later.
Take care.
See you next time.